So I've got a kid who is medically complex, and we've spent time in and out of the hospital throughout his entire life. He's going to be turning 7 in a couple of months here. So we've had a lot of time in hospitals dealing with different medical professionals and this just the system in general. And one thing that has become more and more prevalent in hospitals is something called a traveling nurse or travel nurse. And these are folks who are registered nurses or LVNs, who take on temporary positions, typically for higher pay and more flexibility. And they likely aren't from that location. So, for instance, I'm in the Bay Area. You may come to Palo Alto as a travel nurse, and you may be from a completely different state across the country, what have you, and take on a 13-week or a 6-month contract to work at a hospital so that they've got, the staffing that they need. This was huge during the pandemic, and it still is very big. Obviously it's, slowed down a little bit just because there isn't as big of a need for nursing as there was during the pandemic. But nursing is in major demand, and there's a huge shortage of nursing. And I don't see that coming back anytime soon. So travel nursing is going to be something that we'll see and will be here for a long time. I found this really cool article. I'm going to share my screen here. And I think for those who aren't travel nurses or even travel nurses or considering to be travel nurses, this is a really cool article. Travel nurse. I got to find the right tab here. All right. So this guy right here, this gentleman, Anthony Swain, he's 32 years old and he earns over 100 grand a year as a travel nurse. And there's all kinds of benefits here that I'm not going to get into. I'm not an expert in the medical field. I've never worked in the medical field. I've always, as an adult, worked in the mortgage industry, and that's what I'm really here to talk to you about. But he talks about, the flexibility, the financial freedom that he gets. He makes more money as a travel nurse. He met his wife. He's got to check out a bunch of different locations, got a ton of experience in different hospital settings, different medical teams, different, surgery units and transplant, such and such, and a bunch of stuff that's beyond my pay grade here. So there's, obviously burnout is real in any industry, but definitely the medical field. And this is a way that you can, mix it up and not burn out. But I want to kind of just highlight this because I thought it was a really great article. So this is Business Insider and talks about, the flexibility and the pay. Travel nurses typically get paid more than hospital nurses, right? Staff nurses. You get a stipend that's supposedly going to cover some or all of your expenses for traveling. And you really, you can kind of set up your schedule so that you can, in between contracts, you can take time off. It's unpaid, but you can take the time off. You can really get a way to, just figure things out. And people do this, he's been doing this since I think it was 2016, if I remember correctly. And it sounds like he's still doing it. This article was published, I want to say earlier it's February now, time of this recording. So roughly a month ago, a little over a month ago, this was published. So he's been in places like Charlotte, Seattle, Palo Alto, Baltimore, and today I want to say that they are somewhere in, I think, North Carolina. So it's a really cool segment of the nursing population, travel nursing. It is technically gig work because it's, a lot of times these aren't year long or longer contracts. These are typically anywhere from 13 weeks to 6-month contracts. But it can be really great and you get paid more, right? So let's talk about what I think would be a really cool opportunity. So the reason why I was looking into all of this is because a woman reached out to me who wants to buy her first home. She is a travel nurse here in the Bay Area, and she was turned away by a couple of different mortgage individuals. And she was pretty discouraged and really was hesitant to even talk to anybody else, talk to me about potentially qualifying for a mortgage. She makes great income, but they were saying, look, your income isn't consistent And so therefore, you have to essentially become a staff nurse working at the hospital, or you can't get a loan. And I think that's absolutely wrong. There are some cases where that is, but definitely in her circumstances, it wasn't. So I want to share something. There are two types of ways that somebody can get paid, and that would either be as an employee, so you have a W-2 and a pay stub, or as a 1099 and you'd be self-employed. Um, and if you're paid as an employee, which is this flow chart here, the question is this a contract from a staffing organization, or are you, an independent person, or have multiple contracts from different places, right? If it's a staffing contract, then what a lender like me, what we're going to look at is the stability of income. So we're going to ask for the contract that your current contract, and we're going to see what the pay rate is. We're going to see, what kind of guarantee you have as far as hours are concerned, and we're going to look at obviously the length of the contract to try to make sense of what this agreement is and what kind of income you're bringing in and expect to bring in the future. If there's multiple contracts, then we're going to do something similar, but we're going to ask for all those contracts. And we're going to also look at any kind of gaps, because that is something that we see quite a bit, is that, you might have a 13-week contract. Maybe you take a week or two off to visit family, travel a little bit, or it's just something, you want to take a little bit of time off so you're not burnt out before you pick up that next job. If that's the case, we're going to look at those gaps and try to figure out some sort of average, right, over the last couple of years that you've been working these contract positions. If you're self-employed, you're paid a 1099. You're not paid a pay stub. You're not paid a W-2. You're paid a 1099. And you file a Schedule C on your tax returns. Schedule C is for a sole proprietor or a contractor. So you basically have your 1099 gross income, and then you write off your expenses, right? What kind of traveling expenses, your meals, your equipment, your training, all those things are then deducted from that income, and then you pay taxable income on that adjusted gross. If you are in this type of scenario, then it's really easy actually for a lender to figure out what your income is. We're going to look at that net income on your Schedule C, and we'll take an average of either a year or two of that, depending on your scenario, whatever's probably most conservative, to come up with that. Now, it's tough to talk about travel nursing and not talk about the agencies involved in underwriting files. So there's a couple of different pools of money out there when you're talking about mortgages. The big ones would be conventional loans, FHA loans, VA loans if you're a veteran, USDA loans, which we don't see a lot in my neck of the woods. They're all agencies that issue different books of guidance, issue different guidance to underwrite files and assess the risk on those files. Likely the biggest ones you'd be looking at as a first-time homebuyer will either be an FHA loan or a conventional loan. If you're a veteran, then certainly VA, but for today's purposes, let's focus mostly on conventional loans. Conventional loans, you can put as little as 3% down. You're going to pay mortgage insurance, but it does go away if you put less than 20% down. And these are, I'd say a majority of the mortgages issued in the US come from conventional loans. So there are two different agencies that fall under the conventional umbrella. There's Fannie Mae and there's Freddie Mac. They're both quasi-government agencies. We call them government-sponsored entities. And these agencies issue books of guidelines. Okay. Now, neither of these agencies specifically call out travel nurses. They do talk about gig work and contract work and variable incomes and whatnot, but they don't specifically call out nurse work, right? Contract work. So here's what I would tell you. Fannie Mae is likely going to be the better bet to underwrite under as opposed to Freddie Mac. Typically, the pricing is going to be the same. At the end of the day, you'll get a piece of paper that says you're in debt. Doesn't matter whether it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for the most part. but Fannie Mae's guidelines are likely going to be more lenient for a travel nurse. They're not going to have as much restriction on trying to document as much history. So let me just give you an example. So Fiona reached out to me and she said, "Look, I'm a travel nurse. I've already been told I don't qualify for anything. I can't, none of my income can be used." And so, we talked a little bit, and really what's crazy is that she had over a year of travel nurse experience, and she had over 2 years of hospital work, of staff nurse. So in my book, I'm saying, okay, look, you've got plenty of history. You've got more than enough history. You've been a travel nurse for over a year now. We should be able to use this income. Now, she's had multiple contracts. So what we're going to have to do is document um, the travel nurse time frame. We'll take some sort of average. Let's say she worked as a travel nurse for 12 months with a couple different contracts. We'll add up all the income that she received, and we'll take an average over that time frame. So let's say it's 12 months. We'll divide by 12 to come up with a monthly income. We'll also look at the hospital work that she did and take some sort of average off of that as well. And then we'll compare the two together. When we did this, she made more money as a travel nurse. Now, what I would tell you is, to be conservative, we'll probably go off of the hospital income for now. The logic with this is, well, if travel nursing just doesn't work out, she can always fall back on the hospital work as the staff nurse. And that's going to be the most conservative approach. Now, as she has more and more history as a travel nurse, we can likely go off of that travel nurse income, but at least we can come up with some income, and it's more than what she wants anyways. Now we figured out a way to qualify her using income, a very conservative approach, but it's still an approach that works for us. Here's where we kind of level up. So she's in the Bay Area today. She's not from the Bay Area. So if, let's say, she looks for a home in the Bay Area, right? Let's say she gets a 2 or 3 bedroom home. She moves into that. She brings in some friends, which is the plan, to live in other rooms and, rent out those rooms to offset some of the expense. When she plans to move on to that next place, right? Whether it be, another travel nursing gig or, you have a full-time contract. If she moves away, she can buy another primary residence. She can convert the home in the Bay Area as a investment property, and she can put it on something like Furnish Finders. Let me share this screen here. So Furnish Finders is for traveling professionals, the digital nomads, and lo and behold, travel nurses. She is a travel nurse. She's used Furnished Finder to get her current place. Why not, when she moves away, put her place on Furnished Finder? You could literally, if you're a travel nurse, every time you get a new contract, you could potentially get a primary residence home. Now, obviously, there's a lot of key aspects too. When you buy a primary residence, you're going to sign a piece of paper and you're going to say, I plan to move into this home. It's my intent to move into this home within 60 days and then remain in this home for 12 months or longer. Okay. So as long as it's your intent to move into the home within 60 days and stay there for 12 months, you can do a primary residence. Now, let's say in 6 months, you get a new job and it's somewhere far away. You can, without any kind of issue, move from that primary residence as long as it was your intent to stay in that home when you first signed that piece of paper 6 months ago, right? So if you move away, you can now buy another primary residence. A lender might ask you, hey, it looks like you bought a primary residence 6 months ago. What's the story? And you could say, look, I was somewhere and now I moved to this other place. As long as it checks out, a lender is going to be fine with that. And you can get another primary residence loan. Why is that so great? Well, primary residence loans are less risky for a lender, so the interest rate is going to be less. The terms are going to be better. So you can breadcrumb your way around the U.S., buying in places with likely good, good areas, good job growth, right? Good population, because you're a nurse and there's hospitals there and you're taking care of people. You've got a network of people in the hospital that are also travel nurses that may want to find a place that, you know, accommodates that. You can list your place on Furnished Finders. You can work with the hospitals that you've worked at to make sure that your homes are always occupied. Why would you do a medium term rental? Well, you can charge more because the home is furnished, right? So that's a convenience. And you're going to rent it out by the room. So it's a really, really cool opportunity for somebody who is a travel nurse to buy a home, let's say every year for 5 years as their travel nurse. They'll have 5 homes, let's say in 5 years. They find the place that really works for them. They settle down. They buy another primary residence. Those other homes are now being paid off by the people that are living in them. They're getting more rent than if they were to do a long-term rental. They've networked with the hospitals, so um, they should be they've networked with the hospital, so they likely can get people into those homes better than if, they've networked with the hospital so they can find people to rent the rooms as needed. They've obviously are familiar with Furnished Finders, Airbnb, right? Word of mouth, all that good stuff. And within a short period of time, you can amass a real estate. So within a short period of time, you've now amassed a real estate portfolio that could get you financially free. Um, and you did that really just by living your life, buying a primary residence, moving as you see fit, taking jobs as you see fit. You're kind of working with the life and the career that you have as opposed to against it or doing this other thing. So anyways, I think it's a great opportunity. If you want more information, check out the comments below. I'll put some links there so you can check those things out. And by all means, if you think I missed something or you've got just questions in general, hit me up in the comments. I'll definitely answer them. Thanks so much.